a lot of people were hitching their posts to the Trump wagon in terms of like structure and meaning, and then the pandemic wagon. And now I think a lot of people, a big problem is like, what is everything all for? Like, what are we all fighting for?
Yeah.
What is the point of everything? Fighting for, I mean, the Ukraine thing comes
Yeah,
on
no,
pretty
but
convenient time. Be pretty hypocritical if I said, welcome back.
I know,
Not,
you're right.
Not a lot to do.
Welcome back to Never.
Anyway,
sorry,
it is the
it's
Neverending
yours.
Becoming.
Yeah.
Matt, how you doing?
Hey, well, welcome.
Truth be told, we did just film an episode of your show.
You're ruining the movie magic.
Shit.
It's
Okay,
a movie
I'm sorry.
magic. They're
I'm
not,
sorry.
even though I'm wearing the exact same thing, and we were very close to leaving the same graphic on the
A
background.
little obvious, but
This is 3 days later. I just wore the same clothes.
I'll be a different style, though. Yeah, be more conversation. I don't even have topics today.
It's crazy. This is like the old days. This is like the dark ages.
No.
You know,
Back to jazz.
except for all the lights. It would be the dark ages.
There is an excess number of lights. I think that's been the problem with the video podcast is not acknowledging the fact that you need lights for video. But
Got to see the deep pores. My deep pores.
for those of you listening, we hope you are comforted by the sounds of our voice,
Yeah.
obviously.
Maybe.
Obviously, everyone's been watching footage of Ukrainian shellings on social media, which is pretty horrifying to constantly
I watched a
listen
Russian
to.
commander died today to shelling. Actually,
Did you really?
Yeah, it was a drone footage. Ukraine had taken drone footage of a convoy of tanks, and they shelled the tank successfully, and they killed a serious Russian commander who was in one of the tanks. And I witnessed this on Twitter.
I haven't gotten anything too specific. I just going on TikTok a couple times. They just feed you one. They're like, "Are you in the mood for this? You want to see a little bit of this?" And usually I'm not, but
COVID's over. It's wartime, baby. Wartime.
it's quick. You know,
It's very quick.
we all knew something was going to slide in that space, but that's impressive. Let's not talk about that too much. Everyone's talking about Russia, Ukraine.
We'll get back to it. Don't worry, guys.
Bum everyone out. Yeah, that'll just be the through line.
Just like COVID used to be the thing we didn't talk about, but then it would slowly sidle its way back in the
Exactly.
conversation.
Exactly.
Putin and Russia, baby.
Try to avoid it. Ends up being unavoidable,
You can't. I mean, you can't.
as is life.
Yeah. Well, our lives are dominated by the news cycle, I feel like, predominantly, with the internet and all that stuff. And the news cycle right now is all Ukraine, war, blah, 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 blah,
You
blah.
say this, but you're flying to Florida tomorrow for spring break.
Well, we all need our time away from the insanity, okay, everybody?
I'm excited for you, though. It's going to be a good
God,
time.
I'm excited. I'm
Yeah.
excited. It's been a rough couple months, man.
Yeah, it's been crazy. Well, it's a couple years for me on this side of the table.
Couple years, yeah.
On this side of the table. What's it like having a table, by the way? Is that
It's
tripping you out?
interesting. It's interesting. I'm used to our socialist game table. You
Yeah.
know, this is cool. I feel very like equal. We're very equal, and
Trying not to spend too much time talking about the set dressings, whatnot. Just had to acknowledge it. This is
part of my favorite thing of doing the Neverending Becoming is it's always becoming something new, right? It's always like you go back to these episodes, like we've had like side to side. We've done like the difference of the everything is always changing, and it's very cool.
yeah.
Keeps it fresh and fluid.
Have you noticed a difference based on how close we're sitting?
I enjoy it.
Like if it's easier or harder to talk
it's
about
nice.
certain things?
It's nice. Yeah. You know what? I feel like at this point in our podcasting journey, I could pretty much talk with you about anything, close or far. You know what I'm saying? You just those boundaries just disappear at some point.
Let me ask you some questions, actually, because you did just start your own pod. I'm curious how it's been
Oh yeah,
feeling.
that's the thing. I wasn't allowed on this podcast for a long time because I started my own, and James was getting all weird about it. And he's like,
Right.
well, if you have your own podcast, I can't have you on it.
It was
And-
actually a Screen Actors Guild thing. Little do you know.
I mean, he's the one shooting the podcast, and he's there when I do it. But don't let that fool you. He was very against the whole thing.
Hey, there's only so many hours I'm willing to stare at your face on a screen, man, okay? There's only so much that I can handle.
I think about that. I'm like, wow, he's really staring at me. He's got to listen to me again. This fucking poor bastard. I appreciate it, like, immensely, though.
Okay, question number one, have you listened to your own podcast?
Yes. I do it in the same way I listen to this one, where at the beginning of this one, or at the beginning of when I would do Never End Becoming, I would listen to, like, a lot of it or some of it, and now I have to, like cycle through it. I can't listen to like all of it. I just like hate the sound of my own voice now. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The novelty of hearing myself is worn off. And now it's just like, okay, are you saying something of substance? Yes or no? Oh, you're being a blowhard. Fast forward. You know what I mean? I can't do it. But modern mythology, I really like I like it. I like the whole vibe of it, but I have a hard time listening to myself for 10 minutes.
How do you feel about the title Modern Mythology?
It's grown on me completely.
You were making cracks about like switching it the first year.
I know, yeah, I still, because that's the thing. Well, that was the vibe of this show. We never knew what it was going to be called for the longest time.
Yeah.
And it was like fun to finally, when you finally figured it out, But like, Modern Mythology, I like play around, but I feel like that's really what it is. That's what I'm about, mythology. I've always been about mythology. So the idea that like I'm doing a podcast about, my favorite topics, it's pretty neat,
Absolutely. Absolutely.
It's a gift, really.
I mean, obviously this podcast didn't have a name for, what was it, 11 episodes or something?
It was a while. The first like year. No, I'm just kidding.
Not wholly necessary exactly.
No, but you're figuring it out.
What's on your mind though? I mean, you started a podcast. You're going on spring break. What's
I'm trying to keep things out of my mind right now. I'm trying to empty my mind of everything. I feel like, I don't know. I'm just a ball full of anxiety lately.
Let's get to that. People have been, I mean, in my world at least, tripping. Capital T tripping.
Samesies.
You mentioned your sympathies before the show began. My family dog did recently pass away, which probably adds a little bit of kerosene to the old fire.
Man.
But I feel like in general, especially compared to this time last year, originally getting the vaccines, like kind of coming out of COVID, people are acting way crazier this time around than they were last year. Yes or no?
Hard yes.
Okay.
Hard yes.
Let's figure it out.
I don't know.
Let's solve it.
Let's solve it. I love it. I love the enthusiasm. Like, let's just fucking solve it. Let's just do it, guys.
Or no, I should do that thing like, don't try to fix my problems, okay? Just like hear me out, understand why I'm feeling this way.
I just want to vent.
I'm a fixer, okay? I'm a fixer.
No, man. I think it's important for somebody to fucking try to solve some problems. You
Yeah.
know, there's so many problems. Somebody's got to fucking dive in there and get to it.
Let's put some theories on the table, though. What's going on?
Mass psychosis. It's something in the water. We're all just drinking this fucking psychochemicals. One of these like crazy villains is finally.
You just watched Batman Begins again, didn't you?
I was gonna say, fuck, I can't make it about Batman, but in my brain, I immediately jumped to Batman. Yes. No, like I don't know. It's just I think the last 2 years of being inside and being stir crazy, and now the leash is loosening and loosening, loosening.
Mm-hmm.
I just think it's like let your freak flag fly. You know, people just want to get out there and be nuts.
Okay, so just more COVID craziness added on. I think people. I mean, I'm wondering if it's the fact that last year we put so much hope in the vaccines, thinking that was going to be like the panacea for the pandemic, and now we know there's going to be some stutter steps.
Mm-hmm.
Like no matter what, there's going to be wrinkles.
But do you feel that like COVID had disappeared or not? Not really. Because in my life, I feel like it's like disappeared. It's really
Now.
strange. Yes.
I do now. Yeah, I feel like that more than ever.
Yes.
Yes. I don't know how much I should because I guess I was pretty hopeful like last year too. But something seems fundamentally different because there was still a lot of uncertainty last year with like how many people would get vaccinated, if we would have enough vaccines. I mean, we weren't even at the time yet where people were trying to get like appointments, right? Like trying to figure out when they could get the vaccine. Of course, unless you're a Neverending watcher over the age of 65, 75 years old.
Yeah, I didn't cut the line or anything. But that's bullshit because people were just not getting in line. So I don't feel like I cut the line. I just like took my rightful spot.
Right.
Maybe, I don't know. Some old person didn't get it because I got it and they died and I feel bad. No, I'm just kidding.
How about this? What if people are acting a little bit wackier this year because of like COVID brain or something? Is that possible?
Well, like the being a shut-in for 2 years.
No, but that was happening before.
Or you just
I'm
think
saying,
like you
actually
catching
got COVID and
and
now are like a little crazier.
I did hear that it was affecting people's brains. You see COVID, long-term COVID, and even short-term COVID affecting people's brains, like legitimately. Like
Like, what if Putin went into Ukraine because he caught COVID, too embarrassed to admit it, trying to overcompensate, sitting at that big-ass table, making it seem like he was socially distancing, what have you.
yeah.
But
No, he fell into the traditional yes man dictator's trap, where you want to be surrounded by yes men, and they tell you yes, 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 and then you do a thing, and it turns out it's a big fat no. But all the intelligence you were given said yes, of course, because you're the best. And if we tell you you're not the best, you'll kill us. So you're obviously the best.
no.
And then you get fucked. Sorry. Anyways, but yeah, I would love
So
it better
do you think
if it was
COVID
COVID brain.
got
If he had
Putin or not?
yes,
No.
Yes.
No, anyway.
Yes.
No, I mean, something's got to be going on. I think if you look at, you mentioned the mass psychosis. Let's break that down a little bit closer. I don't think it was Scarecrow putting a chemical in the water. I think maybe it has to do with some of the media, obviously, right?
Yes. I think there's a
Specifically-
diet of things, though. It's a diet of things.
So people, I think a lot of people were hitching their post to the Trump wagon in terms of like structure and meaning, and then the pandemic wagon. And now I think a lot of people, a big problem is like, what is everything all for? Like, what are we all fighting for?
Yeah.
What is the point of everything? Fighting for, I mean, the Ukraine thing comes
Yeah,
on
no,
pretty
but
convenient time for that. But
again, just the polarization. You got to be fighting. There's just this battle, and we have to have a battle. And it feels like maybe the battle. There is no battle right now, right?
yeah,
There's no battle. We're watching a battle.
no
Again.
clear enemy, right? Well, again, Putin. I cannot stop coming back to it. Even me, you could tell I'm obsessed. Like
It's too easy though. It's just too easy.
no, but let's be real for a second. What are you doing in your life to have like meaning or purpose?
Oh my god.
I know. I'm like going from all these
No, it's
Ukraine
just-
cracks
it's
to straight
tough.
talking about like what our own personal
Purposes.
antidote is for this.
It's tough. I think doing the podcast has been nice. It's been a nice outlet and like a way to like, self-reflect, but also like, contribute something to the culture in some small way. Not that like, it's a big deal, but it's nice to do it. You know what I'm saying? But, just trying to like, I know this is going to sound very fucking cliche, and if you've, the moral of my story is I usually don't have kids. However, taking care of my kids, they've become like a really important part of my life and they give my life a lot of meaning, because I think without them, I don't know, man, what's the fucking point? You know what I mean? The world is falling apart very quickly. Our democracy in our own country is falling apart.
Okay, I got it.
There's so many miseries, it's hard, but I have them and I want them to grow up to be good people. So they give my life a little meaning.
You 100% already got us there. The answer to everything. Basically, millennials need to have more children.
Oh my God.
Is what I'm hearing.
That's a hard sell to a lot of selfish millennials. That is a
So-
hard sell.
If this podcast is the way we're able to influence that, then we need to give romance, intimacy, and sex tips so that millennials, moving forward, are able to procreate at a higher level, thus giving themselves parental purpose.
Okay, just so you know, I am not on board with you all having kids. Okay, I'm not on board with it.
You just said it was the best thing in your life.
for me, you out there, do not have kids. Do not do it. Don't wreck your life. Don't ruin your nights. Don't lose your bedtime. Don't lose sleep over what the
please.
world is going to become because you got to leave it to your kids. Don't have kids and then die and not think about it.
In all seriousness, though, Arpit, friend of the pod, you know the guy. He just had a child.
Yes.
In terms of like my friend group growing up, he was the first person to have kids. And I felt the reverberations from that. Even you having kids was so long ago, like
It's old
it
hat.
felt like it was at a less realistic point in my life where I
Sure,
would
yeah.
have kids, what have you. So now it feels more real. And again, also just peer group type thing, like same school, same time. So he had a child. So it's like, oh, I should be having a child. But I've gotten a jolt of positivity in
You got a jolt of
purpose
baby fever.
just
He's
from
got-
my friend having a kid. No,
got baby
we're onto
fever.
something. The millennials having kids. This is the answer.
It's I think there's something to be said about service to other people.
Yeah.
That gives you meaning in your life. And I think we're in a culture, society where it's very pleasurable for the individual. We have cell phones that hit our dopamine immediately. It's all about self-satisfaction immediately for ourselves. And I think when you have a kid or you do service for other people, it takes you out of yourself and you become more connected with the world around you and you feel better about it. You know what I mean? But I don't think I don't recommend having kids for everybody. Like,
I hate the whole concept.
no,
of
and I'm
you don't-
being
you-
facetious, but like,
No, yeah, your life's not together. So like, have kids so you have like a project.
Yeah,
it feels gross.
that's-
It definitely does.
I have a friend who was thinking about doing that, and I'm like,
How does he? Let's talk about this. How does he voice it? How does he talk about that?
no, it's
Does
just
he get drunk and then say
no,
like,
no,
"I
no,
see you have a
no.
fucking
It's just like
kid, man."
casual stuff. It's just casual stuff, and I love this person, and I love the way they are with my kids and everything. But I'm just like, man, like I don't know, like that's a pretty serious thing to do.
No, but specifically, what words do they use? Do they talk about the fact that they're insecure, that they need something
it's a lot of.
to like?
I'll be honest, the instincts aren't maternal. They're not paternal. They're maternal. So it's somebody who wants to adopt a kid, because she's feeling very maternal and she
Okay.
wants to have a kid, and
Okay.
it's just part of the makeup. You want, sometimes I feel like, I shouldn't generalize for women because men feel it too, but like you just, you want to have a kid, you want to like have that feeling and stuff like that, and man,
So wait, let me ask this: does she talk about it in relation to how she feels about herself, or like what she wants to give that child's life.
It's what she wants
maybe
to give. Yes. It's generally about like being a positive influence and stuff like that. But I think too, in my mind, it's like you said, like maybe, oh, if I do this thing, this will give my life meaning, and I will be better at these areas that I'm not good at, or something. You know, when it's like it's not like that. I don't know.
It always really bugged me. Again, it really bugged me when people just had kids just because they couldn't. I felt it, growing up, that they couldn't come up with some sort of narrative that was more powerful.
Yeah.
Or let's say maybe more original for their own life.
Yeah.
But there is something timeless about it. And you did mention, of course, that a healthy way to feel good in the world is, of course, to focus on others as opposed to focusing on yourself, right? Which is something definitely millennials generally have struggled with, elements of narcissism and feeling like everything is about us.
Yes.
I worked at a nonprofit for 4 years, and I did other jobs, before that, where I got a lot of self-satisfaction, being that, this is, of course, aspirational, being that beacon of light for other people or doing things for other people, right? Like, obviously, getting along by thinking about, like, what I could contribute to others as a way to not think as much about myself.
And that's, I think, healthy. I think that's healthy. But I am a narcissistic millennial. I'm a narcissistic millennial. Like, I did not. The way I feel about my kids is not something that I envisioned when I had kids. You know what I'm saying? It's something that people
I kind
told
of
me
do,
about.
but tell me more about that.
Nothing. I just didn't want to have kids. I'll be perfectly honest. I did not want to have kids. I didn't want to have one, let alone two. And now I can't imagine my life without them because they're just the best. And I love them through the bullshit and the thick and the thin and through all my bad jokes about not wanting them. I imagine in 20 years they'll go back to the podcast and be like, man, Dad was a real piece of shit. He really said some horrible things. But know that I love both of you very, very much. I'm just a selfish, narcissistic millennial. And I am the main character of my story, as they say. I'm just kidding.
You've been on an arc. You're kind of telling the story through your own experience. I appreciate that. How has that changed? Abby, is it a day-by-day type thing?
Yes.
Or
Yeah, listen, yes. Yeah, no.
was it 2 years of narcissistic struggle and then like a light switch flipped, or has it been like
When Harry was born. I think Harry was born.
when the second child came along?
That's when things really started to get serious, and I started to like, I don't know, through I think feel like Clem was born and the beginnings. I was still a real selfish asshole, and I was trying to do exactly what I wanted to do through having the kid. I thought I could have my selfishness and all the things I wanted and also have a kid. And that's just that's just not how it worked. You have to have some sacrifice, which is why sometimes I think I say people don't have kids, because like you need to sacrifice. And if you don't want to sacrifice and you're not the type of person who is willing to give something to somebody else, then you shouldn't do it, And I feel like lately on the internet I've seen a lot of like anti-child stuff and like I'm never having kids and like, oh God, kids,
Right.
where like something was like, oh, thank you all you millennial parents, because I can now live my life, free of responsibility and blah, blah, blah. And I'll live vicariously, for you, blah, 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 shit like that. And it kind of like, yeah, I kind of get bothered by it, it's like, fuck. But then I think like, oh man, like, the opposite's like, oh man, they're so shallow that they can't get there to like sacrifice or like want to experience another human. That's at the end of the day, like we can all talk about the future and like, crazy blah, 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 blah. At the end of the day, man, like we're about procreation as humans. It's about keeping the species going. You know what I mean?
True.
Like, whatever. So I did my duty.
No, and you're talking about like a specifically selected population. I mean, if you're online, you have free time, and maybe that's because you didn't have kids, right? So specifically, you're going to have more time to trumpet your preferences online due to the fact that you have nothing else to do with your time.
No responsibilities.
I mean, I always love to talk about like religion waning too, because I think that ends up playing into a lot of this.
Love those studies that like the U.S. is getting more and more irreligious. I guess is that the word?
Less and less religious.
Less religious. Irreligious? I'm just
irreligious.
irregardless about the irreligion in this country.
Irre-Christian.
Even though we are a puritanical fucking society.
No, I'm cracking up, but I think we actually do need more language to talk about the loss of faith. Right?
Yeah, totally.
Because so much of it is like belief, faith, religion, but like we actually do need some like anti-words for losing faith. What do we have? Like atheist, agnostic,
With
too loaded.
secularism, anti-secularism.
Secular. See, they always sound like they're half Latin terminology or they're pseudoscientific words.
Excommunication. That's just kidding.
We looked at your X-ray. Unfortunately, you have an agnostic secular growth in your
Colon.
lateral vermicular.
It is very, very jargony.
It's extremely jargony, and we need something plainer, I want to say. So we're not too far off with this irreligious.
Now, are you okay with the lack of faith, or are you more like we need to kind of have some deeper spirituality in our society? Or are you like, no, let's get God the fuck out of everything?
I am okay with the lack of traditional religion, the lack of the historical cloths that we've
So
ascribed
James
to.
is a heathen.
However, I have learned to respect and have a lot of interest in spirituality, if I could use the S word, another loaded one, but also like routine, habits, community. I made a point in one of the recent solo podcasts I did that podcasting is like a cult, and that's like definitely something that helps fill the God hole, right?
Tribes, cults,
How many men right now get along, survive being part of the Joe Rogan experience? How many men listen to Joe Rogan 12 hours a week and their preacher at their church 5 minutes,
Right.
10 minutes? I mean, look at the math on that. It's undeniable. I actually was thinking about this because obviously Rogan's getting a lot of hate now, and I'm not a huge, I don't watch his show anymore. I'm over it. I'm over that period in my life.
Really quick, I think it would be interesting to go back to the beginning of the pod when we talk about Rogan to now, because for my money, my personal self, I have changed over the years listening to him and how what he was and what he's become and what he is now. You know what I mean? And I think that hopefully in the future somebody is able to actually write like a history or like some sort of like documentary or some sort of chronicle of the beginning and the end of the whole Joe, not the end necessarily, but the whole saga of Joe Rogan and his rise. And I guess what we're watching is maybe not the fall, but it's a little bit of a off the kilter.
I think you could call it, to use religious terms, fall from grace.
See what
I think you could definitely use some of that. Or it's like, in musician terms, like the sophomore slump. His first act was getting to the throne. And now he's kind of.
But I can't even say he's a sophomore anymore because he's been doing this for years. You know what I'm saying?
But in radio terms, your second decade is like you're 2 years old. Is right. The second decade of like being on talk radio is a lot like having your second album as a musician.
Because he's been on
everything's
what?
Relative.
He's been on what for? Is it been 15 years? Not quite, right? Something like that.
I think it's 13, 14, something. Yeah, 2008, 2009. It's been a long time. Anyway, I was thinking I had a couple years ago I was going to Austin, Texas, and I was trying to get on a train, trying to get on a plane, trying to travel there. And this is in Chicago. The Blue Line was the way I was trying to get there, but it got canceled. And a bunch of people trying to get to O'Hare had gotten thrown off. And basically, I ended up splitting a cab with this random person to get to O'Hare. It's a German businessman, okay? Again, this is like 2.5 years ago. This is a while ago.
And this man was Adolf Hitler. No, I'm sorry. German business. Sorry, I had to make a joke.
Is he Austrian, German?
Austrian. He was Austrian.
Okay, I'm just checking. This isn't the History Channel. But no, this is personal anecdote town. I split a cab with this German guy, and somehow we ended up talking about Joe Rogan. I don't know how it was. I think because what are you going to do on the plane? Listen to a podcast? Oh, what kind of podcast? But this German guy was like into Joe Rogan, and he was doing worldwide travel. He was some sort of level of successful businessman.
Right.
And since I've had multiple instances where I've come across people who are in the cult of Rogan.
Right.
And now I mentioned I don't listen to Joe anymore, but I still am like a podcast freak. Like I love podcasts.
Yeah.
And I've definitely been using podcasts as a replacement for the sermon. That's been a big deal. I haven't had kids.
Yeah.
I'm one of these millennial scumbags, so to speak, but
Joe's Sermon on the Mount. You gotta experience his
Sermon from the Octagon.
Yeah.
Does he fight? Is it a cage? Is it an octagon?
Yeah, it's the Octagon.
Okay.
But that's when he does his what do we call it? Announcing. Yeah.
Oration from the Octagon.
Oration from the Octagon. Yeah, no, but you're finding your community, you're finding a voice, and that's ultimately what it's about, right? You're finding your tribe, right? That's what they do with all this, like the sociology and all that stuff is all like, you break us down to the basics. We're just tribal. We all want to find our right tribe.
Yeah.
And, you know, you find your tribe of Joe Rogan and he says things and it's like, oh man, this is exactly how, you know, I feel these views, blah, blah, blah. You know what I mean? It's like, when you hear something that you relate to so fundamentally, it's very intoxicating.
Do you have any, since we're like regaling Rogan here, do you have any stories of like connecting about his podcast with other guys or people?
I remember at work, it was a big deal because.
Do you mind saying where?
Whole Foods. I worked in Whole Foods.
Progressive workspace.
Yeah, Whole Foods. But again, so like the idea though that Joe is this like conservative ideologue, I feel like this is a relatively new phenomenon for me personally. You know, when I was listening to him at his height, like, so my first Joe Rogan episode was episode, I think, 1000, when he had Segura and Joey Diaz on. And Joey Diaz is talking about his farts. And I was just crying, laughing, because it was like comedians.
Is this
right?
a story you told at Whole Foods, or is this...
I have told the story. Like that was like one of my favorite part. It's changing flavors. It's a great story. But like, and everyone knows that one if they're Rogan fans.
What was the connection with your coworker?
Just like we were talking, and it was just people would always have their headphones, and they'd always have their headphones in. It's like, oh, what are you listening to? Blah blah blah. And then it became, oh, I'm listening to Rogan. Oh, you listen to Rogan too? Oh yeah, what episodes do you like? Blah blah blah. You know, and then he would have his cast of characters on of people that he would like, and then he'd talk about that. They did the Sober October for a while, which was always really entertaining to listen to, early on. And again, it was like a little community. When you'd listen to the episodes, it was like, oh, did you listen to that episode? And so talked about such and such. Because again, you talk about cults and like tribes. It's all about secret information and this like extra information. And Joe was a big provider of like secret specific contextual information, whether you talk about aliens, whether you talk about, just like sciencey things, evolution, men's health,
Yeah.
And to be perfectly honest.
And by men's health, you mean shroom tech,
yeah,
alpha lipoic acid,
DMT.
alpha brain, and testosterone replacement therapy. Sorry, continue.
No. This is going to be probably an unpopular opinion, and whatever, if people want to give me flack. But like, a safe space for white men. You know what I mean? Like,
I don't even think it was white men thing, because
you're right.
I've met a lot of people that were not white men.
But just like the idea of like for like guys, right?
For guys, and I think that's much more in line.
Fair enough.
Pure male play.
It was,
because this has of course been an era too where I think the pendulum has very necessarily swung in the other direction of consideration for gender issues. And he has been able to ride the wave in sort of being unapologetically male, right?
Exactly. It was a spot where you could not have to feel bad about the changing times and the changing cultures and all those things of like, you're a guy and like all the evil that has been perpetrated in your name of being a guy. You could listen to Rogan and be like, hey guys, and be like, oh, okay, it's not so bad being a dude. I can be a guy's guy and listen to this guy talk about stuff. You know what I mean? And then you were relating to other men with this. It was a way to talk to other men about topics. You don't always want to talk about sports or blah blah blah, but hey, that sleep doctor was on Rogan. Oh my god, let's talk about sleep doctor.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It was just a really good conversation starter, continuer. And again, it's a secret society, like you're talking about. Oh, you listen to Rogan? Oh yeah, I also listen to Rogan. You know what I mean? It's like a bonding thing.
Yeah. How much do you think of his appeal is lost just by the fact that he's been like specifically platformed now? The fact that he has like a commercial deal.
Yeah, that's ruined it
with
for me.
a major company.
That ruined it for me, honestly.
It feels like he's been validated by the mainstream, but maybe that invalidates some of the counterculture feelings that a lot of people were getting from him.
Yeah, I there's a couple of feelings. I understand exactly why he sold out, because I heard recently that it wasn't $100 million; it was $200 million that they paid him.
Yeah, which is 100 more than 100 million. That's a lot of millions.
That's 100 more than 100 million. That's a fuck ton of millions, So like, I get why he sold out.
So he can buy a $25 million house in Spain too, and not just Austin, Texas.
Right.
I don't know how much his house costs.
I watched a clip of him though, and he was with another comedian, Bert Kreischer, and they were at Kill Tony, and Rogan is just ripped, and he's just being like, just obnoxious, and he was just telling people he's gonna buy him a house. And just like, he was just living on top of the world. You know what I mean?
It's hard to watch, honestly. It's hard to hear about stuff like that.
And like he's sitting next to one of his comedic idols who who's a guy that doesn't have a lot of money and who's just been grinding his whole life, and Joe's up there laughing and telling somebody that he's going to buy him a house. Meanwhile, this guy's next to him who doesn't fucking have a house. You know, it's like, help this guy out to your right instead of making jokes and stuff like that. You know, he's lost. I feel like with that money hasn't made him, and I'm just talking for me, honestly. I feel like it makes you lose perspective. You know, it puts you on a pedestal, and I felt like Joe was never on a pedestal, but he's put himself on a pedestal.
Big point of him was him taking shrooms to kill his ego, right?
Absolutely.
It's him going in a sensory deprivation tank to let all of the conscious reminders like melt away a little bit. It's funny you bring up the money thing. Actually, the only Rogan episode I listened to was very recently due to your recommendation because Mr. Beast was on there. And actually, part of my current purpose is trying to learn YouTube better. And I wanted to learn from the man himself, Mr. Beast. And in that episode, Joe offers to buy Mr. Beast's Squid Games red light, green light shooter from him. Like the concept of like, how'd you make that doll comes up.
Yeah.
And he's like, I'll buy that thing off you.
Right.
It's
right.
just like,
That's just like a topic,
Shit.
but he can just do that now. Like how many things now in his life have just opened doors now because he can just buy it. I'll just fucking buy it for you. Yeah, I'll just buy it for you.
I know, but he should. That's why I don't know. I'm actually curious if he's still been doing the same regimen of taking mushrooms or like killing his ego because he does seem to be reinforcing, digging his heels in a little too hard.
We all know the phrase: "Absolute power corrupts absolutely."
Yeah, it's true.
And I think he is a very great example. Not a guy that he's corrupt or anything, but like he is now who he is. He is now who he is. He's got platformed, and now he's running into like flack for some of the things he said, but the platform is gonna keep going. You know what I mean? It's just like I don't know.
So, absolute power corrupts absolutely. What would fix the world more is if in this podcast we became the #1 podcast in the world and then dethroned Rogan so that he could actually have some thoughtfulness again, or should we get back to the millennial romance thing so that they have children?
I'll tell you what, I gave it some thought. You know, now that I'm doing my own podcast and all that stuff about getting popular and being the best podcast ever, I decided I do not want that throne or that title. Do you know what I mean? Like, I would never want to be the best.
You're taking the route where you pretend you don't want it?
No, honestly, if I had like, if I could like somehow garner like 1,000 viewers, right? Like 1,000 viewers, and like that was like my diehard. There was 1,000 people that just really like to listen to me. I would die a happy person. I mean, I'll even take whatever I get. I mean, I'm just saying like that's a lot of responsibility and a lot of like. That's a lot to deal with, being the #1 of anything, you know?
What if instead of 1,000 though, you could have 200 million viewers?
That's so much though. 200 million fucking viewers.
I'm joking. No, there's definitely a Goldilocks zone.
Sure.
Terms,
but like just like the amount of people, like that's a lot of responsibility. And that's the thing is though, the extremes get larger when you have a bigger percentage of people liking you and watching you and looking at you. The highs get high, but the lows get fucking low.
Yeah,
it's
it's true.
like death threats and like the way like Twitter and the internet works, it's like people are just vengeful and they hide behind anonymous usernames and they trash you. And you know, I just feel like, you know, I expose myself a lot on here, so if I would not want it to blow up too big, you know, like just enough to where it's like cool, you know.
You wouldn't have to worry about the 1,000 people on Twitter if you just, you know, do what Joe did, join Parler or whatever.
I
Join
mean,
Boink. What are these things called? I don't even know. Is there another
Trump's got a new one too, right? Of course it's failing, but I can't remember the name of it. It's free speech unless you want to badmouth Republicans, and then you're kicked off the platform. They deplatform you.
It's us all.
I love
Obviously, pretty second rate. I mentioned being interested in YouTube is like my form of purpose.
Yeah.
That's definitely been like a hill I'm interested in climbing up now. We've been working in obscurity somewhat. By somewhat, I mean absolutely.
Which is where I like it, apparently.
Yeah, we're getting exactly what you want right now. Is we do not have 1,000 people watching this show.
No, do you understand what I'm... Sorry, go ahead.
Of course I understand. I acknowledge the Goldilocks, zone. Like, you want to be seen, but you don't want to be overexposed.
Yes.
Yes, of course.
I don't have to run into the situation where I have to sell out.
Right.
I don't.
Well, you want an audience too, but maybe you don't want pressure from
Yes.
playing a concert in like a stadium, right? Like there's somewhere between small nightclub and the SoFi Stadium in LA.
I take it back. I really do want to sell out. I would like all the money. I take it back. I really thought about what I just said. No, I would absolutely like to sell out, just on my terms. That's what I mean, right? And yes, SoFi Stadium versus a smaller venue like this studio.
Right.
I don't know what I want. I don't want to be Rogan.
don't have to
I don't
now.
want to be Rogan anymore. That's what I realized. There was a
Okay.
time in my life where I wanted to be Joe Rogan, right?
Well, right.
And I don't want to be Joe Rogan anymore. Wow, I just feel like I had an
I don't
epiphany. I just had
Did you just hit it?
I feel like I just had an epiphany there. You know, like it's a thing that I've been thinking about a lot around like having, you know what I mean? But just like, yeah, I don't want to be Joe Rogan anymore.
Well, obviously, that's a good, healthy thing you're thinking of, because how many people can be Joe Rogan? One. Really?
One of one.
Because, his stature's due in part to the relative nature of, like, podcast rankings, and the fact that Spotify can't shell out 200 milli, for each schmo who picks up a Shure SM7B, of which
Damn shame.
I think there would be so many more schmoes over the years picking up these Shure SM7Bs. Actually, on that, 850,000 podcasts out there in the world, which, if like you're doing one from every man, woman, and child, 0.01% of the people in the world have a podcast. So
Well, that joke that everyone's got one's all full of shit then, huh?
It's totally full of shit.
Wow.
It's totally full of shit.
I'm in the 1%, guys.
You're in the 0.01%.
Wow, the 0.01%.
It's like mind-blowingly small.
Right.
How few people have podcasts.
That makes me feel better.
People are going to chirp in and say this is bullshit because obviously not everyone in the world is online, which of course makes sense, but there's also statistics that like half the world is going to go online in the next 5-7 years, right? Like we're at,
We'll be ready
3 billion?
for them. We'll be ready for them. And then by the time they get on, they'll be ready for us. And,
No, but there's 2.5 billion people that have a Facebook account or of some sort, Meta account. So that's like WhatsApp, Instagram, Facebook. But 2.5 billion.
that's a lot of people.
Out of the 4 billion people online, pretty amazing. Pretty amazing. So again, using YouTube as a way to have some sort of purpose, I was actually thinking about different ways to do that. How do you feel about the fact that like you don't have your posts on your own channel?
That doesn't bother me in the slightest.
Do you feel like you specifically enjoy it? Like you don't want to see the analytics? Is that like
Yeah, I really, it's like freeing not having to take full ownership of it. Does that make sense?
It does. Is this in the same way though? You don't want to be Joe Rogan?
Yeah, no.
Like you don't want the shine?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I don't. If it gets more people to like look at your channel.
But what if you believe in what you're saying and you think
I do,
it
but
can
I
make a positive difference in people's lives? Don't you want it to get bigger?
Sure, yeah, but I would like it to get bigger under the umbrella of everything we do here. I don't feel like I need to like break out on my own just yet. You know what I mean? And whatever, if there's a time, like, okay, fine. But like the idea that like it's like under the umbrella of like, if you go to the Neverending Becoming subreddit or YouTube channel, that's where Modern Mythology is. And that's like where I want to be though. Like the idea that I would be this other, you know what I'm saying?
I do know what you're saying, but you would never be on your own because it would be Neverending Becoming presents Modern Mythology, a subsidiary of SoFi Technologies.
Yeah, no, I really don't. I really don't. I remember early on in this podcast, and there was like conversations like, whose channel is it going to be on? And it was like that kind of thing. And I just remember being like, I don't care. Like I don't like that ownership stake for me is not there. I feel like me doing the thing is like that's it. Like I'm the one doing it. Like, you know what I mean? I don't know. Like that's as much. But it's not like I'm the one doing it because obviously James is helping me like immensely through the whole process. Like he's guiding me like a baby bird through this thing, and like
No, I see what you're
like
saying.
I couldn't do it without him. But again, I wouldn't be able to do it without him. Do you know what I mean? So like the idea that like it's all mine, I feel like that's a bullshit thought too because it's not all mine.
Right. That's always an illusion.
And the communal nature of it, like it's a like building the brand of Neverending Becoming and Modern Mythology being part of that brand. It's like, instead of separating, you combine it to grow bigger. Does that, you know what I mean? That's the way I look at it too.
No, 100%. I mean, trying to...
If you're trying to kick me off the channel, you can just kick me off the channel.
No, not that.
I know.
More, if anything, I was like, should I like, if I wanted to release things more from my own personal perspective or just maybe even when I podcast alone, should that be on like a separate YouTube channel? Like, this is James Smith Grattan. This other thing that's like a community thing is Neverending Becoming.
We've talked about this before with Your Mom's House. I don't know if you remember that. Your Mom's House.
Yeah, a little bit.
So
to tell people.
Your Mom's House
rundown.
is one of my all-time favorite podcasts. I think they're one of the best in the game at doing it. And
this is your purpose in life right now.
That's I'd rather be Tom and Christina than I would be Joe fucking Rogan. Honest to God, because they're funnier and they they are also, I think, going to Spotify or something, but they're also going to maintain, there's light, they're going to maintain their presence on YouTube and all that stuff. And the deal they signed specifically is like, we want to keep this free for everybody in our zones because they're so loyal to their fan base. And their fan base is very driven by them. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
Do yourself a favor if you're listening to this. Go to Garth Brooks' Instagram account and look up any single Instagram post he has and try to make sense of what's going on there. Your Mom's House has completely destroyed his Instagram and all of Garth Brooks' social media. Like, it is one of the funniest things you will ever see. And like, there's Garth Brooks fans that don't understand what the hell is going on. And it's like, it's all the slang, all of the different quotes and jokes and all the inside jokes. And it's just hilarious. But when
I have a theory Garth Brooks is one of the most powerful men in America, by the way.
Yeah, that's their joke. But he's also a psychopath. And they like make jokes like, where are the bodies, Garth? So you just see like, the family needs closure, Garth, like blah, blah, blah. Because he's just like all about Studio G. And like, it's just very funny. They go deep dives.
All right, but what you're originally trying to talk about is...
Your Mom's House has
they started spitting out new podcasts.
Yeah. So it was Your Mom's House originally, and then they have Tom and Bert, which is Two Bears, One Cave.
Yeah.
And then they have another one with like Dr. Drew, who was, a Loveline fame, Dr. Drew After Dark. So it's like those three shows and are now like Your Mom's House Studios. But Tom Segura, who's like the host, he has his own channel, the Tom Segura channel on YouTube, and he does Tom Talks, which are a separate entity, and he takes it a little more seriously, a lot less jokes. He has like really successful people on there, like football players. He has Draymond.
So quick case study. Do you follow both of those accounts on YouTube?
Yeah, I do. And then Christina has her own, which is Where Your Mom's House is.
Do you follow hers?
Yes, I follow all of them.
Do you follow every single one in the family, even physician's assistant Drew?
I do. There's the other one, and then Josh Potter, who had he was originally on Your Mom's House, and then they went to Austin, and he stayed, so I follow his podcast as well.
Okay.
So they have like 6 or 7 and 4 or 5 different podcasts out there right now. Like, you're like, oh, that's so much.
No, they do. I'm just trying to think how much it matters that it's separate. Obviously, I think a big part of it is just based on how like YouTube probably doles out ad revenue. And the fact that someone like you, they can get 5 subscriptions out of one super fan versus just having the ability to get one subscription from all these people that are out there.
But I think back to your point, they wanted to differentiate it, that it was not Your Mom's House. That like Tom was like, I'm going to be serious on this. Yeah. And Where My Mom's At, it's like, I'm going to talk about this stuff. And like, like...
I'm trying to learn about the algorithm, and it seems like that is part of it, because I currently post these like long form 1 hour podcasts along with like a 2-minute music video type thing, along with a 15-minute jam band type thing. And there's no direct connection between someone who likes, guitar, bass, drums, jam music and someone who wants to listen to two bros talk about Rogan for 45 minutes, right? Like, algorithmically, it might make sense to differentiate those two things.
Yes. Yeah.
Or those 3 things or those 4 things now that, you're on there doing Modern Myth.
Yeah. If it comes to the point where in your research of YouTube, it's like it'd be much smarter for your view count and your development to break away, then I would totally.
I'm just gonna keep watching Mr. Beast interviews and do whatever the young man tells me.
Right. And the only reason why I recommended the Rogan was because I was like, oh, it's Mr. Beast, and we were just talking about him and blah blah blah, and I was like, there you go, It's been a while since I've watched Rogan, honestly.
On to Mr. Beast, he is an awesome dude, so to speak. To use this dude, bro.
The only stuff it's
like cool guy, nice guy.
Yeah,
I think so. I think he espouses some healthy habit patterns to people about hard work and focusing on what you can control and continual learning. Basically, like he just has a very healthy mindset. He's a very mature mindset. One of the things I need to learn from what he does is delegating and like only doing one thing. Like, I edit all this, I set up the lights for all this, obviously we're on camera for all this. But, he's been able to get to the scale of making these gigantic videos because he's not sweeping up after every shoot, right? He's allowed himself to trust other people to do different things, and I think it can be hard to do. I know some people want to get out of any work they can, but sometimes you have to let go for that, right?
And you got to get to a level where you can let go too, right? Like
where
he's at a stage where, his production values in some of his videos are just outrageous, right?
Yeah.
To be fair, it's funny because as how large Mr. Beast was, he was a big knowledge gap for me. I had never heard of him. I had not had any sort of interactions or nothing with him. And then James started talking about him, and then it was like a switch flipped, and then I saw him everywhere, and I was like, holy shit, this guy's everywhere. It was very bizarre for me. It was just like, it was like a Mandela effect or something. Like, it was like, oh, this guy exists? Oh, wait, he exists and he's everywhere? Like, it was really bizarre.
I think he hit a certain threshold for sure, especially with the Squid Game thing, critical mass rather.
Yeah.
And he has blown up. He was the most subscribed to person on YouTube last year, 2021. I think he picked up like 80 million subscribers or some gigantic number. So it has been a demonstration of how exponential growth happens, right? Like he was on, I don't know, you don't know, but he was on YouTube for like 10 years.
Before
and that 10th year is when he got all his gains, really, when you look at the grand scheme of things. Which of
Only
course,
7 more years to go.
Exactly. So in 6.5 years, you will get 99,000 subscribers.
Just automatically. It's a YouTube thing. Wow. That's pretty impressive, though. But like he like you said, he grinded. He grounded.
He did. Did you watch any of his stuff?
No.
So you just, okay.
It's literally what you tell me.
Aware of him, cultural
Yeah,
competency
yeah,
at this
yeah,
point,
yeah.
but like you don't care to view his content necessarily.
No, I mean, it's not that I don't. I just haven't. I mean, I'm in my own bubbles. You know what I mean? I got my own bubble.
Yeah.
And so I'll see things through my bubble, but then it's like, oh, you're over there. It's not in my thing yet. It's not my sphere yet. It's like,
It's all good.
But then, it'll be like the bubbles will rub, and then all of a sudden it's part of my bubble, and it's in there. You know what I mean? So it's rubbing against it to make a bigger bubble. Do you know what I'm saying?
I am. I'm trying so hard to make like a joke about Mr. Beast buying like 1 million comic books and giving them out to 1 million orphans or something.
And then I'll get into it. No.
If you want to use that, by the way, Jimmy, feel free. From one James to another, go ahead and use it. Also, a fellow James in media.
Yeah. Not enough of those.
Ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. Do you feel like we solved the millennial romance parenthood crisis? Or is there something
exacerbated?
Can you give people maybe more inspiration to have kids, since you were saying it's so important?
I feel like I'm giving you inspiration, but I'm also slapping you really hard to make sure it doesn't really set in. As beautiful as it is when they tell you they love you or they do that cool thing that you've been teaching them and they do the thing, they're also gonna like puke and shit all over your house and you got to change your carpets. So it's like, you know what I mean? It's like a catch-22.
Absolutely.
We all got the stomach flu real bad, like really bad. We went to an indoor water park for my daughter's birthday, and we got. It just it hit me first, right? And it was coming out.
So you got them sick, it sounds like.
Yeah, I did. Well, it was
on camera.
coming
Just
out both ends.
Admitted to the crime.
Oh, I did. You know what? It's funny because we thought it was maybe like a flare up or something, or something like me just being sick, and I was like, I don't know. This feels pretty like toxic. You know what I mean? And it was like, I talked a little bit on the other part, but my daughter.
This is the second time you told a story about shitting out your ass.
I won't tell that part. Though I will say again, for those that don't know, you take for granted your sphincter control.
Okay.
When you're young.
Okay.
You just take for granted it.
Let's tie the two topics together.
So my daughter, just really quick, she's like, you just love your kids and you want the best for them and everything, but sometimes they just do the dumbest fucking shit, and it's 1 a.m. We've been dealing with this sickness for like 4 or 5 days. It's almost over. My daughter's like, I'm not gonna puke. Okay, cool, fine. Go to bed. Lay in your bed. She gets up, runs to the bathroom. We hear her. It's 2 a.m. We've been up all night. We know what's going on. She's throwing up. She runs back into the bedroom, whips open the door 2 a.m. Guys, I'm throwing up. And we're like, okay, go back in the bathroom. And then she turns around and throws up all over the carpet. Clem, what the fuck are you doing?
Classic.
You're already in the bathroom throwing up. We can hear you. Why you gotta come tell us? And then dump it all on the carpet for us,
It sounds like a parenting error more. You should have put one of those dog cones around her. And
it was a parenting error, all right. I'll tell you what.
Duct tape the cone closed. Except air holes, of course. Put a couple air holes in that thing. Actually, would you let your kids watch your podcast?
Not now, no.
Because they threw up on the carpet?
Not today, no. But if they want to watch it in like a couple years, yeah, for sure. I mean, I swear.
Well, I think they're going to be able to do that.
Yeah,
It's going to be hard to stop them.
Like Clem is very curious because, and then it's something too with like YouTube, right? When your kid, for her, it's interesting because she's growing up with YouTube. I didn't have, you know what I mean? I didn't have YouTube when I was a youth, blah, blah, blah. But it's like television. So the idea for her at the beginning, she was like, you're on YouTube?
Right.
How did you get on YouTube? Daddy's on YouTube? You know, it was like a big thing for her. She doesn't know it's like a fucking, like, I could throw any video up on there. You know what I mean? She doesn't realize, like, it's like a free platform. It's just like, whoa, Daddy's on fucking this thing, this crazy thing, you know?
And by throw up any video, you mean world-class content for young men.
I know.
That's
I
what
was
you're
just like,
saying.
I was kind of disparaging everything we're doing, but I was trying not to, because it's like, no, we're putting effort into this. But I just mean it's very egalitarian. Like, anybody could do it. You know what I mean? It's
That's
not,
what I love. That's one of the things I love
Right,
about YouTube.
right.
How flat it is. You know, the fact that it's actually in every country too. Like, not everything gives you that ability to communicate all across the world.
Right. And that's goes back, like, if somebody likes this and they share, you know what I mean? It's just that accessibility that has never existed before in our history. No. But anyway, she sees me on YouTube and she's curious. So I've shown her like moments and clips, but I don't think she's going to sit down for an hour and watch one of these things. I think about in the future, this is a real thing. If I ever die some like untimely or like soonish, you know what I mean? And then like there's a gap in her life. I know she'll go back and watch all of these at some point in her life to like connect with Dad and see where Dad was like in his 30s. You know what I mean? Like, and now
I'm gonna rebuild you starting with that sphincter story.
Just so you know, I love you, Clem. If I'm dead and you're watching this, I really love you and you're a great girl. Even though I've talked a lot of shit. But like, no, for real. Like I envision that in the future, if this is still here in like 10, 15, 20 years.
You know what I'll do is I'll repost all the videos, different channel, edit out any of the questionable things you said,
thank
and
you.
just you'll seem like Danny Tanner. You know, you'll seem like the #1 dad.
R.I.P.
We should actually wrap because I forgot to say I wanted to do this a little shorter too.
Oh, okay.
We also lost the light and everything.
Oh,
and,
sure, okay.
yeah.
I could just, I have like 45 more minutes to go on millennial relationships and childbirth and stuff. But fine, if you want to get the fuck out of here, Boyle, that's fine. That's fine.
You're the one jet setting tomorrow.
No, I really am. I really do have to go. I really appreciate it. I got to get the fuck out of here too.
Give me how about give me a little something you're looking forward to on the trip.
Oh man,
Give people some hope.
Sure, I'm gonna.
Shooting Rogan down.
I gotta give hope. I was just gonna, again, selfish, millennial, narcissistic. You know, I'm gonna spend time with my family. No, I have a 50-pound bag of books that I am going to plow through in the next 10 days. Comic books, comedy biographies, science fiction book, and I'm gonna just destroy that.
Which one are you most excited about?
I don't know, honestly. There's a lot that I'm really looking
one.
forward to. There's a couple of. Let me think. I got Groucho Marx's autobiography.
Okay. Cool.
And I've been wanting to read that for a long time. I went into Half Price Books and I was like, I don't know. And literally they had everything I had been looking for the last year was there. This biography is like a small press book. They don't really publish it anymore.
Yeah.
I looked it up on Amazon. It's like $25. $8 at half price, like waiting for me right there. I was like, I didn't go into Half Price Books a lot, but it was like, here's your vacation book for you, buddy. I was like, oh, fuck yes. So I'm really excited to read that. I love comedians.
It's nice of them to mark it down for you. You know, wasn't it?
What do you give me some? You give me some hope. Enough about me. You give me some hope. Give me something good.
I gave some. I mean, watch Mr. Beast's interviews if you want to learn how to be good on YouTube. If you want to listen to smart people, much smarter than us, talk about Ukraine, watch Ian Bremmer or Yuval Noah Harari.
Yeah.
Put out some good interviews lately about everything. And other than that, that's all I got to say, man. I think let's say goodbye.
Yeah.
We even lost the camera. Look, the top one's off.
Uh-oh.
All right. Peace, everyone. Let's cut it.